Okay, you guys, this is our before. So she's about like a perfect level 7. How long has it been since you colored your hair?
April.
Whoa. So we've got really good grow out to work with. And what we're going to be doing is adding a little money piece. So we have some face frame. We're also going to add some low lights, but that's about it. Then we're going to tone down because we're adding in all of these extensions. So we've got the Stu and the Kendra, and we're taking her a little bit darker, but still with some brighter pops. So I'm going to show you guys how we tone her down while keeping her bright in the front and then adding in the J-Tides. So stay tuned for this fun transformation. Okay, you guys, so we are going to start mixing up her color. By the way, I'm getting my hair done, so that's why I look like this. And you guys will see that video soon, so stay tuned. Or you may have already seen it, depending on when this goes up. So if so, I will link it below. I literally just did half a scoop of lightener because we're just doing face frame. We don't need anything crazy. We're using Goldwell Oxycure, and we're gonna be doing this with 20 volume. I feel like 20 volume is my go-to because it has really good lift and we don't need anything higher than that for her hair. But we also don't need anything lower because I do want the maximum lift we can get. So we're gonna be doing 20 volume here, and we are just mixing it up with a whisk. And I like to whip my bleach really well so that it's like a really good creamy consistency. There we go. Okay. And then I'm gonna get a brush out for this one, and I'm using a brush that's kind of like a medium to small size because that's perfect for the hairline. And then we're also gonna mix up her low light color right now. Okay, so I'm gonna do Redken Shades EQ, and when I do shades with a bottle, I just kind of go off of the ounces on the bottle, but I'm gonna do this with a bowl and a brush, so I'm gonna measure here on the scale. So we're gonna do shades 6NB. This is gonna be our main tone. I'm gonna do 0.8 ounces of that. Actually, took it about up to 1, so that's what we're doing. And then I'm just gonna do like a little dash of 5G. And then I'm also gonna do some 9N because that's gonna bring the levels up a little bit, so it's gonna be like a 7-8. I'm gonna take that to 1.5. And then I'm gonna use the gel processing developer because this gives it a thicker consistency and this makes it easier to work with in foils. And I'm gonna do equal parts, so that's gonna go up to 3.0. Okay. And then I'm gonna mix that up with a whisk as well. And then we're gonna be doing this in foils, the money piece in foils, and then we're also gonna do a paint between and then tone down at the bowl. And I will show you guys when we get to that point what we mix up. All right, you guys, so this is the only area we're doing lightener in, and I wanna focus really heavy in this hairline because we're gonna be very lived in, but I want it to be bright here so it looks sun-kissed. So I am going to be working on an angle in this halo section around the face. I just kind of parted off the whole section I wanna go in, clipped it away, and then I'm just gonna work in here. And I always like to start towards the base by the ear and work on an angle and then brick lay up. So I am just going to pull tight. When you're doing this, you wanna pull the tension really tight so that you know how the hair is gonna lay, and then you can kind of relax it after you get your section. So I'm pulling tight and I'm just gonna carve out the section I want to work with. And I definitely wanna make sure I have really delicate sections in here so that it lifts really cleanly. And especially when you're doing slices, I'm probably gonna highlight it so it's not too contrasted, but especially when you're doing slices, you really wanna make sure you have very fine sections. Okay, so I'm gonna take this whole hairline and I'm gonna pull really good tension 90 degrees away from the head. And then I'm just gonna go through and highlight this area. So I do have some dropout, which is fine, but this is gonna be bold enough where it's gonna help it blend. But since we're not doing like a bright blonde, it's gonna be a lot more lived in and darker. I don't want this to be too bright because then it's gonna look like a stripe around her face. I want it to be more lived in, but still brighter, which is why I'm doing highlights and not slicing. Okay, so I'm just gonna apply that there. And I'm honestly just taking it all the way through because it's mostly regrowth, and then it just kind of brightens up the ends as well. And then we're gonna work to the next section. And I'm gonna just slowly start to brick lay. So I actually can do another one just like right above it. And then I'll probably start to get further over in the next section. Okay, I also wanted to touch on the fact that this client does have a little bit of hair loss. So you guys have probably noticed she has some shorter hairs in the front and then also in the back of her hair. And this is because she actually has a thyroid condition. This is one of my stylists. She actually had to get surgery last month for it, and it has been brutal for her, and it has affected her hair in the craziest ways. And when you have a client like this, sometimes it can be scary to color their hair or do extensions. So always, trust your gut, do what's best for them. Don't put any stress or chemicals where they're having the breakage or the damage or, the scalp trauma, but you can work around it, and we are able to give her a beautiful lift-in color and a full head of extensions working around those areas that have been affected. So I just wanted you guys to know that if you do have clients that experience scalp trauma, there are still solutions for them. You just kind of have to be creative.
Why do I make things complicated? Why do I lose all my control? I keep on letting my bad habits make us both come crashing to the floor. Something to save us, close but we're strangers. Feel like we're far apart. I'm stripping down new. I'm stripping down new. I'm stripping down new. This is not what we should be. Start to get the best of me. This is not what we should be. Start to get the best of me. I keep on holding things within me. I keep it deep inside myself. I swear to never talk about it until I start to yell. Something to save us, close but we're strangers. Feel like we're far apart. Strip it down new. Strip it down new. Strip it down new. This is not what we should be.
Okay, so I finished that hairline. I honestly just did the same thing up until I got to the point where I wanted to finish, just doing those highlights. Now we're gonna add in lowlights, and I'm taking bigger sections. I don't need to worry about taking such fine sections because I want this dimension to stand out. And if I do like tiny sections and baby lights, it's just gonna look super kind of like one-dimensional and blended too much, which you never think anything can be blended too much, but in this case it can. So I'm gonna take bigger sections, and I'm kind of doing like a chunkier weave, if you will, just so it'll stand out. But our sections themselves are still really fine. I'm not taking like a ton of hair because you definitely want to make sure you saturate these really well. So I'm taking that low light formula now, and I'm going to apply that. And we're going to be taking some of these and dragging them all the way through mids to ends, and then some of them we're only going to take halfway. But since this is the first one, I want to create depth behind the money pieces, so I'm dragging it all the way down. And the biggest thing with lowlights is you have to make sure you saturate, because putting this on dry hair, it can go splotchy and spotty so easily, especially on blonde hair, because it's like so porous that it just takes really weird in certain areas. I think with her hair we'll be okay because it's not like super, super blonde, but we're gonna have to make sure we do that. So my next one, I'm just kind of building up in this section, taking that same weaving pattern and doing that again, but this time I'm only going to saturate the root area, and then I'm just gonna kind of feather down a little bit and leave the ends out. And this is gonna give us variation so it doesn't just look like chunky lowlights, and then it will also keep some of our ends bright. So I'm gonna do that all the way up to the top, and then I'm actually gonna throw in probably like 1 or 2 highlights on the top just so that it blends really well. And then on this one, since it's right behind that money piece, I'm gonna be very precise about my application. The other one I just kind of like feathered down. On this one, I'm gonna actually go like this and kind of like draw a line so I know where my transition needs to be. So that's gonna start further up, and then I'm gonna go further down in the back so that we have that nice little transition.
Why do I make things complicated?
Okay, so we are going to saturate her mids to ends with the 7 seconds leave-in because this is going to give us a barrier when I do the paint between. And I'm actually taking the same formula I did for my low light, and I am just going to do a slight paint between because this is just going to deepen her base a little bit so that we have that blends with the low lights. Because if I left it as it is, her hair is level 7 and we're darkening with the low light, so that would look kind of funny. So I'm just taking that same formula, doing that paint between, and you want to make sure that you do this in very fine sections. You don't have to, you don't want to take like a big chunk at once, which is why I just do one section at a time. And I always do the top first, and then I flip it up and then do the underneath like that so that we have good saturation. And you want to make sure you kind of follow the same idea that you did with the lowlights, where it's a little higher up top and then you can get a little bit lower in the back. Okay guys, so we had her all rinsed out and I just washed with Kevin Murphy's Young Again wash, and then I did Olaplex mids to ends, and now I am applying her root toner, and this is Redken Shades EQ 6NB 7NA with a dash of 5N just to give it a little bit of depth because we are going a teeny bit darker. And I am applying this on her base as a root shadow, higher up towards the front and further back in the back. And then I am leaving that front section out, and I'm going to do that a little bit differently because I want to keep that brighter around the face. But she lifted so well. I'm super excited to see it with the extensions in because it's going to be beautiful. And then for the toner on the dropouts in the blonde, we are doing Redken Shades EQ 10VG 9P 9NB. Okay, so now I'm going to go off of the halo section and I'm just going to kind of slightly tap.
Keep on letting my bad habits make us both come crashing to the floor. Something to save us, close but we're strangers. Feel like we're far apart. Stripping down the middle.
And then I'm going to comb the front all together to blend it, and then I'm just going to kind of twist it and leave it out in the front. And then I'm going to comb all of this. And then I'm going to go do the same thing in the back, and then I'm going to rinse it out and do the toner. Okay guys, so I just rinsed her money piece area so that doesn't go too dark, but the root's actually on everywhere else, and I'm going to actually tone it all together. I'm going to do the money area last again because I don't want that to take too quickly. So I'm going to just kind of section the front out, and then I am just going to tone everything in the back and work it in with the root. I like to do this on brunettes because I feel like if you're doing lived-in color or brunette hair, you want to work that root in. So you want to work that root in with the mids to ends because it's going to be lived in. But if I was doing a bright blonde and a root shadow, then I would rinse that out first. So I'm just going to work that in and then let that all sit and then come up and tone the front, and then I will rinse that sooner if I need to. And when it comes to toning, I usually just kind of watch it. I don't have like a set rule of like, this is how long it needs to stay on, because honestly, every client is so different and every color is different. So I always just say, don't walk away from a toner. Just make sure you're watching it and it's doing what you want it to do, and just be patient, because I know sometimes when you're watching it, it's like watching paint dry. You're like, okay, when's it gonna happen? Or you get scared and you rinse it too soon. Just trust the process, break the hair apart, make sure you know what it's doing. That's what I'm doing with the front, and I'll rinse that first and let the ends in the back sit a little bit longer, and then we'll be good to go. And typically with any blonde service, whether it's lived in like this or bright blonde, after I rinse the color out, I will shampoo and condition. And I typically like to mix half purple shampoo, half regular, just to reinforce the toner. It won't do much. It'll just kind of like help the toner not strip out. And then I'm gonna condition. Okay guys, this is it all blow dried. We just did a nice little blowout on her, and then we're gonna add the extensions in. But I wanted to show you what it looks like before, because I always get comments about that, like, show us the color before the extensions. She actually chopped her hair a few months ago, so she actually doesn't even need extensions. She's just been rocking the short hair, but we're going to Orlando for premiere and classes, so she wanted to brighten up and put extensions in. So we are going to be adding the J-Tide wefts and tape-ins. But the color is literally perfect. We're doing Kendra and Stu, and I can't wait to see what it looks like. Okay guys, we have this row all done. So we've got the one row with the Jay-Z Styles bead foundation, and now we are gonna sew in the J-Tide wefts. All right, you guys, this is it with her extensions in. We are obsessed. She hasn't actually seen it yet. So hopefully she likes it, but I'm obsessed. It looks so freaking good. Sorry, I messed up your part. Gotta switch it back. So we have like that peekaboo bold money piece. I love that it like frames the face so nicely, but it doesn't look like a stripe up there. We've got the nice dimension, and then we have the extensions. We did Kendra and Stu. It's like the perfect color, and it looks amazing on her.